So I'm setting that up too. I'll make sure it's muted so it doesn't echo.
Hey folks, how we doing? Welcome to another Friday. Here with Alan from Let's Talk Metal and Aaron from the Metal Theologian. And thanks for getting together, guys. This will be a fun one tonight. We're going to discuss Noise Records.
Noise!
Which is a label that is very instrumental in my metal evolution, as I don't know what, well, I do know what was the first thing I heard, with the first one I bought from Noise, and from there it just kind of, anything with a Noise symbol on it I bought, and back in the day blew me away. So tonight basically what we're going to do is not talk about the most influential Noise albums, but our top 10 personal favorites. Aaron, I guess we'll start with you. When did you, or Alan, go ahead.
Oh, we did have one rule, just so folks aren't wondering what the heck we're doing. We limited ourselves to one album per band.
Yep.
So that, yeah, we can't, we didn't want this to become just another Halloween love fest between everybody. So
I'm ready to go again on if you want. You know, we could scrap this idea and talk about Halloween some more.
Yeah, but yeah, just so folks in the chat, you know, if they're wondering, just like, you know, when are they going to mention the next Halloween album? We are forcing ourselves to pick one per band.
That's so funny. I actually didn't pick any Halloween either. I've never been the biggest Halloween fan, though. You know, I mean, I like them, I respect them. I like them a lot more now than I did back in the day. But I suppose this is jumping ahead anyway. So
that's okay.
No. In fact, since you're new to this, Aaron, why don't you start first? When did you first started? Where did Noise Records get on the radar for you?
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me too. It's kind of an honor, so I appreciate it. But, as far as okay, so I was pretty much a dumbass. Is kind of the thing, okay? Because I was in Germany, like when the shit was at its peak, right? And I just wasn't paying any attention to it. I was listening to like Van Halen and shit like that. And I kind of started to clue in. Like I got into Destruction in like 87 or 88, okay? But like I didn't get into Sodom until the 90s, you know? And Creator I didn't really get into until even later than that. And so a lot of the shit really kind of went by me, and I tried to dwell too much on who I might have been able to see in like small clubs if I'd been paying attention, because I was kind of young, you know. I wasn't necessarily going to be doing a whole lot of that by myself, but I could have done more than I did probably.
So how old were you when you were in Germany at this point? You were early teens?
Well, I was actually, let's see, I was 11 when we moved there in 83. I was almost 16 when we moved back in 88. So right there, you know, 16 is old enough to do a lot of things in Germany. I didn't quite make it, so I've been a little hard on myself as far as we're going to clubs and that. But I should have seen Sodom or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
In 84, wouldn't you freak out if I could say, yeah, I saw Sodom in 84?
Your true metal
like, Jesus. Yeah.
You mentioned 83, and 83 was noise. The noise side of the label is that was their first release, and that was 83 Bitch Be My Slave is N001. That crazy. And it was a Metal Blade. I know them and Metal Blade did a joint releases of each other's stuff. That's how we got Hellhammer and Celtic Frost over here.
Yeah, I remember when that box set came out, the one that you just reviewed, Alan, actually, with the Metal Massacre things. I remember thinking at the time that was a weird box set.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird box set. And yeah, the other one I mentioned in there, the colored vinyl version with the Europe only, was even weirder because one of the guys in the chat right now, I think Jurgen, pointed out that it was volumes 3 through 6. Who the hell does a box set of volumes 3 through 6 of anything? That was such a weird, you know, range to put into the other box set.
Yeah, and I wasn't hip to you know, compilations and just sort of the joy of that, so I would have missed out on something like a Metal Massacre comp. But I do remember having my mind blown a little bit when I saw this at the record store. Oh fuck, come on, you know what I'm going to show right now too, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I don't own that, damn it. I'll get it eventually.
That's a cool one. Yeah, that cover for that time was, you know, quite the thing.
Oh yeah, I was like, holy shit, Jesus. You know, I'd never heard of any of these bands before. I think Walls of Jericho is already out, so I might have heard the name Halloween before, but I had no idea. You know, Hellhammer was fucking nobody. You know, people act like they were so huge. in retrospect, but at the time, no one gave a fuck about Hellhammer.
Aren't
That's why
both
those
the
records are
Halloween tracks
expensive.
on that? Like they're exclusive to that release. What is it? Warnest for Life and something else like
Orange
Metal
for Life.
Invaders.
Oh, Metal Invaders. Okay.
Yeah, that made it to the LP, didn't it? Wasn't Metal Invaders on Walls of Jericho?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But that other one.
Yeah, that covers a year before Possessed Seven Churches and 3 years before Scream Bloody Gore came out. So it's quite the thing. And yes, if folks aren't aware, it did get censored and couldn't be sold in some places with that cover art.
Crazy.
Yeah, I remember when that one came out then too.
Yeah, they reissued it, and it literally just says kind of censored across the cover.
And it like describes it in all this detail in German, like what on the cover is. What's on the cover?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, how about
yeah, so I wasn't quite ready for that, but it blew my mind. That like when the Hellhammer EP came out, I remember seeing that around on my way to the AC/DC records.
Right.
I was kind of in a relationship with the shit, Now I was smart enough when.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say when the internet started becoming a thing, I kind of gotten back into metal again after my sort of 90-ish slump that I think everyone else did too, except you. And I started, just sort of making contacts and getting to know people in that. So I ended up scoring a bunch of the shit from a guy like in the early days of eBay that I just sort of made friends with and worked out some deals in that. So,
Well, back then when the internet was just getting started and eBay was just getting started, people didn't really seem to care that much about records anymore. So you could get killer shit for nothing prices. There was a few bands here and there that still earned a high retail price, but I remember just getting tons and tons of killer shit for under $20, religiously.
Yeah.
Everybody wants CDs.
I'll tell you something that'll piss everyone in the chat off. Like in the early days of eBay, like this shit was so easy to get, and I couldn't find the shit in the wild, right?
Right.
But like I was wanting to get the early Sodom records, and I'd already bought a copy of In the Sign of Evil. And then someone went on there and posted a lot with Sign of Evil and Obsessed by Cruelty, and I really wanted to get Obsessed by Cruelty. I didn't want to wait around for other ones. I was like, fuck it, I'll just bid on this one too. I ended up winning it for like $20, both those records. That's why I have 2 copies of In the Sign of Evil.
Nice.
But this one was a Devil's Game press, not a Metal Blade. So,
Cool.
What about you, Alan? When did you stumble across this label?
Let's see. Noise I was stumbled across. I was also high school age. It would have been 90, certainly by spring 1990. I was aware of some stuff on Noise. And yeah, it was not easy to find. For those that don't know, I grew up, in the rural South. It was, a good hour and a half drive to any kind of decent record store back then. So access to Noise titles was pretty limited. Not, a lot of them didn't get very good distribution in the US. So even, when you found out about some of them, for example, it took me forever to get my hands on any Running Wild record, just because they didn't get any distribution in the US. So I could find a couple of other, Noise titles. Halloween was pretty easy to find. But yeah, even some of the other big names on their roster, Creator, Running Wild, those were never in the record stores I had access to. So it was a long time. I waited, literally years before I could put my hands on physical copies of some of those things. And this being early, in mid 90s, I couldn't hear them on the internet. I would read about them in, zines like Sentinel Steel, but it's just like, well, one day sooner or later I'll get them. And Sentinel Steel is actually the way I got some of those when Dennis had his mail order going. It's like, okay, hey, somebody here in the US finally has these for sales. I haven't heard them. I'm just going to order them blind and check them out because I wanted to hear them so bad.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm in the rural north, and thankfully we had a Camelot Music in town, and they carried all the Noise, the bigger bands, anyway. And there was a local radio station here in town, it's still here, but they focus mostly on blues. There was a metal show at the college radio station that I could just pick up, and they played some stuff, and friends get into heavier things, and that Doomsday News comp, I found that on tape, and that just kind of blew the lid off my brain, I think, and sent me on a quick acquisition of anything with the Noise logo on the back of it.
Mhm.
I'm going to show that too later.
Yeah, you know something, and I'm not showing this. Okay, this is actually not on my list because I just got this within the last 6 months or so. So I'd be lying if I presented this was like one of my like foundational ones. I bought this solely because I knew it was a formative record for Marty Worm,
Yeah.
and I wanted to have the artifact in my collection.
Yep.
It's a great record, but you know I have records by these bands, but I had to have the artifact. So
Yep. No, I started with
I
that.
tip my hat now.
Yeah, I started with that before I started getting any albums, and I'm like, I have to get an album by every band on this thing, you know, best way I could. But Aaron, you're the guest for the evening. Why don't you start with your list? We're gonna do one at a time and go from there.
All right, cool. Just because it's going to bother me. Where in the South are you from, Alan? Did you say South Carolina? Is that where you grew up too?
No, I'm in South Carolina now. But I grew up in the Blue Ridge in Virginia, kind of in that little neck of Virginia that's stuck next to Tennessee and West Virginia.
Yeah, up at like.
So, yeah, that part of the state, not the Shenandoah Valley part. That was
You
a few
know,
hours south from there.
I've heard that Lynchburg is a really good place for records.
I have gone to Lynchburg hunting records a couple of times. Danville, there's one really big store in Danville. If you've got an afternoon to kill and don't mind digging hard, you can come up with some cool stuff in that store in Danville. So yeah, there's a few places. Those were the kinds of places that, yeah, you know, it's still a 90-minute drive from where we were out, and there's no direct way. I mean, It's all like 2-lane highway to get back and forth from them. So you're doing, 55 miles an hour at best through these little curvy country roads to get from where I was at. Kind of the only reference point for where I grew up is about 45 minutes from Virginia Tech's campus. But it's like stand at Virginia Tech, point in the most redneck direction, and go. Find the one mountain that has no coal and gets no snow, and there you go. I'm up there.
That's awesome. All right, well, we can get back on track too. I don't mean to hijack it, but since we haven't talked as much, man.
It's cool.
We have no.
It's a little bit weird actually because I've talked with Marty. Go ahead.
We have no time schedule, so it's all good.
Right on. All right, well, cool. Now, I actually didn't pull a full 10 because I kind of started going. I was like, something. These are my favorites. Most of the others are other bands by these, and I'm just kind of full of shit. So, like, I pulled this one out just as a curio. I think I started messaging you that I was going to pull some out just because they were cool. Mm. This really isn't all that great a record. And I think they're Swiss. But it looks great. It's like this weird sort of orphan noise record. Like, there were a couple others too. Like, oh God, what was the name of that Gland band? Not Sado, but the other one.
Was it V something?
Yeah, I think you're right. And then there was like some Crown or something like that. Whatever. Anyway, this is one of the sort of also rans on noise. And, again, it's not the greatest thing ever, but it's kind of a cool piece. Mm-hmm. So I figured I'd bust it out. And yeah, it definitely looks awesome. I mean, if I were going solely based on the musical quality, I would say I might have paid too much for this. But with the cover factor, and I did okay.
Is that a noise record?
Yeah.
Well, right on.
Yeah, totally. So there's the logo.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and someone in the chat probably knows. These guys were like, I could probably look at this and figure it out, but I wouldn't say they were Swiss, but it could have been like Danish or something. Yeah, see that though?
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. My mouse is taking a shit. There we go. Don't know, man.
I wasn't thinking of Valentine's. Valentine's is good though, but yeah. But that's true though too. They were one and done.
Okay, Mr. Allen, you're up.
My dog ate the homework.
Well, not.
No, okay, let's see. So yeah, number 10. I tried to put these kind of in a order. Now ask me a month from now and I'd probably give you a different order, of course. But
oh shit, I didn't do that at all.
I want to start with this one. Tank Zombie Attack.
Tank.
My list will be kind of skewed in some funny ways, but yeah, I like this one quite a bit. I'm not real familiar with all of Tank's discography, but this one
I didn't catch it right away.
But yeah, this one's a cool one. I like, it's got, very simple kind of, very punky kind of influenced, Venom influence vibe to it. Lots of fun songs with Mercenary and such. So it's just a very good, straightforward, no frills, high velocity thrash record, and very fun one. This one's a combat press, so I lose points for that. But
Well, it still says Noise on it. We're safe.
yeah, it was released on Noise and then licensed by Combat for the U.S. But
that was one of those records that is, every single song, the chorus is basically the name of the song.
Pretty much, and you just repeat it over and over, but you have fun doing it, and everyone gets stuck in your brain as soon as you hear it.
Yep. This one from Tankard this isn't one of my lists, but this tape, their second album, Chemical Invasion, is my favorite Tankard album, and they got a lot more technical. The songs are still fun, but they really kind of started to show off their musicianship on this, and it was just really good, fun, drunk, aggressive thrash, and I listened to the shit out of this tape. I'm surprised it still plays, to be honest with you. But this was one of my number 10, and I had to pick this one because this is what I was listening to back in the day, is Gates to Purgatory.
Nice.
Wild album. And, man, this struck me at the time as pretty unique, and the songs are super catchy.
Yep.
A lot of mid-paced rockers on this thing. I don't know, man. It just, it wasn't until the last 5 years that I finally got over the fact that they changed, because I was so into this record, and by the time I heard Under Jolly Roger, I'm like, what the fuck happened to this band? But I've gotten over that now, and I actually prefer the pirate stuff to this. I would say probably Branded in Exile is my favorite Running Wild, but at the time, this was pretty unique from what was going on in America with, the Metal Blade stuff, and this really isn't straight up thrash. It's good heavy metal, and spun the crap out of this thing. So this is definitely a very, very powerful release in their catalog for me, anyway.
Hell yeah, like Preacher is almost like doomy.
It is, yeah. That's a cool song for sure.
You're back up, Aaron.
So since I was in Germany, actually, I wasn't into Running Wild yet, but there was a lot of hype for Noise did like a lot of promotion for this record when it came out, actually. I remember I used to get all my metal shirts from this place in Nuremberg called Bullshirt, which I think I've talked about with Jurgen before. But they had like full page ads in there taken out for their shirts by the labels for like Running Wild, and then like Exhumer and Rage had a page, and I think Living Death was the other one or something like that. And at the time I was like, oh, I didn't know any of these bands, but I want to listen to Van Halen. So, but later on I found this one, and it's funny because comparing my story with Alan's, one of the things that I'm thinking is I feel like I did sort of get all this shit like in there. So like along the way, then when I saw these records later on, when I was more interested, I'd be like, oh yeah, I better snag that one, So that served me well. This is kind of a cool note because it's actually a test press.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Can you see that? And I just found this in the wild, and I think it was a $3 bin, not a dollar bin. But this is one of my good like 90s ones. You see that?
I wonder how many they press of the test pressings, because I know now it's standard to do 5. Or you can request more, and I think bigger labels requested more just to make sure that the plates were going to be good for a long run.
Yeah, because it wasn't unusual back then to send test pressings to like writers and even radio stations and stuff like that to try to get some hype going before the release.
Right.
But I mean, you don't see them very often, so that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it doesn't have the printed inner, actually. That was the price I had to pay for it, but I didn't even know at the time it existed. And I brought this home, and I was sort of getting into metal again. Living in San Francisco, I played the shit out of this, man. So it was close between this one and that first one, actually. But this is the first one I actually bought and started spending time with. I started going, holy shit. I thought Rock and Rolf was a chode, but I was wrong because he's fucking fantastic.
No, he's fucking riff meister, man. He's a great riff writer.
Yeah. And like every song on this record, I mean, one thing about Running Wild that we haven't really talked about is there's no, I don't think there's any other band that translates that German beer hall aesthetic into a song as successfully as Running Wild. Because I mean, I say that and it sounds horrible, right? I mean, it sounds like United or some piece of shit of a song like that, right? But no, we're talking about Chains and Leather. you know, and it's just great, you know. I mean, it's easy to rip on if you want to do that, but just fantastic. And there's nothing else quite like it, you know.
Yeah. I really like the production on that album, and it's not a good production. You know, it sounds kind of muffled and low, but it fits the music really good, where it has a little bit of that.
There's all the space in it.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of this dark vibe, and it gives it a little bit of a cavernous sound that just really kind of emphasizes that it's heavily Judas Priest influenced, but it's like a dark version of Judas Priest, whereas Priest at the time had that very bright, classic 80s, kind of electronic synthy sound. And Running Wild sounds like they're recording in the basement of some German castle somewhere, and it works. I love the sound on the album.
There's a conflicting opinion here.
Dude, here's the thing. I wouldn't even argue against that because, for all the reasons that he says it sucks, those are the reasons that, first of all, I agree with him. You can shit on it. It kind of sucks, but it's also the reasons why it's great.
It's cheesy, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Like if Jurgen and I each made a list, I did the pros and he did the cons. We turned them over and they had the same list. Same thing goes for what's the song? Prisoners of Our Time. That one's has the same kind of chorus, the sing along, the beer hall shit, like Chains and Leather. Yeah. Only the English is rougher. The rhymes in Prisoner of Our Time are really kind of straining.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gets a bonus point for that for sure.
So where did they sit with you when they started to shift into the more epic pirate metal style?
Well, true to form, I was behind because let's see. That first one with the pirate one, Under Jolly Roger, that came out while I was still in Germany, right? So that came out and there was sort of this hype, oh, look, they're changing direction and shit. I didn't really care about that because I was a dumbass. It's funny, though, because there were certain things I did get into. I did get into Destruction right around then, and Voivod I got into really early, but I didn't get into Running Wild, even though they were right in front of me, so go figure.
Yeah. Yeah, I was much later on the pirate stuff. When I finally came around on it, I just had to have I think I'm missing 1 or 2 records in their collection now, but it's been a fun band to travel back and get their stuff on. Even when it's not necessarily their best material, it's still really solid. It's really well written riffs, and Rolf still sounds great. I don't know.
Yeah. I really think those first 2 are magical, and the EP too, which I almost showed because it's kind of the cooler one as far as being harder to find. But this was the more honest choice as far as the one for me,
Yep.
But where was I going with that? I fucking spaced now. Oh well, sorry.
You're up, Mr.
Oh, they changed, but I did come around on the pirate sound. I actually got a copy of Under Jolly Roger not too long before I moved out here. I remember found it at Rasputin's in Berkeley. A copy of Under Jolly Roger. I took it home and I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? This is great.
I know.
So I have that one. I got a reissue of Port Royal then too. I think that's all I have. No, I have the live record too, but I don't know if that
You need to get Death or Glory. That's my
I don't have Death or Glory. Yeah.
It's really good. Really, really, really good.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Allen, what do you got? Hold on, let me get you over here.
Oh, no problem. All right, number 9. Let's go Sabbath. History of a Time to Come, one of the just most bitching album cover arts in the Noise catalog. I keep this framed on the wall above my computer. It's not one that's behind me, but it's always on the wall up here. I had to take it down and deframe it tonight. But of course, Martin Walker, Andy Sneap, one of the few really, really good British thrash bands.
Yep.
Martin, lyrical genius when it comes to writing lyrics. Now, he's not my favorite vocalist ever. He kind of barks and is kind of staccato, and it can wear on you after a while. But in terms of just writing lyrics, always very intelligent, very clever, really cool stuff. And this album is one I played to death back in the day. I don't revisit it as much these days as I used to, but always been a favorite. Everything, the packaging, everything about it, the songs really, really strong. And of course, Martin and Andy both just went from strength to strength, with other projects throughout their whole career. So had to put Sabbath's History of a Time to Come on the list tonight.
Right on.
How does that one compare to Dreamweaver in your estimation?
It's very
That's
good.
the only one I have. I don't have that one.
Yeah, Dreamweaver, was dominated by sort of the concept story process, but very similar. Most people, I think, prefer Dreamweaver. It's probably a little more mature overall, but if you like one, I think you'd like the other. trying to think if I've ever heard anybody say like, "Yeah, I love that one," and the other one stinks.
Well, the thing of it is, the History of a Time to Come, Dreamweaver Martin completely plastered every ounce of music with lyrics, which that made that one. I mean, I've got that one here to show. This isn't on my list because the one that Alan showed is on my list, but this album, I absolutely love the artwork and I love this album.
Yep.
It just took a lot more to get into it because it's so vocal dominant.
Yeah. History is very dense with it's really packed with lyrics, but yeah, Dreamweaver, it's like a German or rather a British version of like John Arch and Fate's Warnings classical period. They just jam everything possible into it. It's very, very dense, but good. It's not proggy. It's not hard to get into in that sense. It's just it takes a long time to process it. I first heard that one, Marty. One of my buddies in high school had it on tape and lent it to me. And I'd sit there and play it in study hall, and just, it took a long time. It's like, I like this, but it took a long time to process everything going on in that record.
Yeah.
Which is why I usually will pick History over that, because it's just a little more digestible. But they're both solid albums. After that, you got to be careful. The third one is no.
Yeah, Morning is Broken. Martin wasn't in the band anymore, and it just wasn't the same band.
Yeah, I made the mistake of ordering that CD for not a cheap price back in the day, and I didn't keep it very long.
Yeah. I mean, you made the comment that the English scene isn't that great, and I mostly agree with you, Sabbath, and the first two Onslaught records, the Force in particular, this isn't a noise band, but man, that's one of those thrash albums that no one talks about, and it's fucking great. It's really, really, really great. It's like anyway,
there are some good things. There are some very good bands from that later '80s UK scene. It's pretty thin. There's not a long roster of bands to check out. But the Onslaught stuff is good. Wild Pussy is pretty good. They did an EP that's kind of borderline between power and thrash, but very, very strong material. Pretty aggressive.
It's pretty speedy, that record. Yeah.
It's a good one.
That's a band.
Yeah, they did an EP called Mechanarchy. It's got a bright yellow cover. It's pretty easy to spot. Apparently, Aaron's going to go get a copy.
He's going to go get himself some Wild Pussy.
About time we got some on this podcast.
Finally.
I don't know why y'all are here, but I'm here for the I'm here for the beer.
Right. Well, while he's looking for Wild Pussy, I'm going to show this one off. I could have been cool. Oh wait, he's here. We'll look at that first.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah, just to hype these guys, because this is one of those, people talk about Hammer On and Slaughter Extroy, so people don't talk about Wild Pussy very much, and they are really good.
They are very, very good. Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, more aggressive.
I had it close.
More aggressive and more straightforward than like Slaughter Extroys. Slaughter's great, but Wild Pussy's a little more straightforward, just headbanging, full throttle kind of stuff.
Oh, it's a very different kind of band. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very tight band.
I could have went with the first two albums by this band because I really love them both, but this album, Death Rose, Deception Ignored, this to me is a tech thrash masterpiece within, a very impressive German sound, German style. It's super technical, yet really it's really catchy. The riffs are really good. This is one of those bands that have like 25 riffs per song, but there's always some hook in there that they return to. And didn't you end up getting this, Aaron? Didn't I talk you into buying this? You hated it, or did you like it?
Oh no, it's really good. I haven't fully assimilated it yet, though. Yeah,
they put one more after this called Life Beyond, which is.
How about that one too? Actually,
it's good. It's just not as. I think their first two albums have a very evil thrash vibe to it. Yeah, Satan's Gift. It was called Riders of Doom here in the U.S. Had different cover too, but this album is a special album. Songs like Machinery. The first song, Events and Concealment, they're just great, amazing technical thrash. It's like a much more German-styled Watchtower with more gruff German-styled vocals. I don't know. These guys are great, and definitely if you have not heard this album, check it out. It's totally worth it.
I really like that last one, too, that fourth one.
Yeah.
It's definitely more in that style. but it's totally worth it, man. That band's whole career. And the first two are kind of more my taste, but one of these days those other two are going to really sink in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those deals that it makes me wonder if they were to get back together today, what could they do? What would they sound like? It'd be interesting to hear how 30 years of death metal infects these older thrash bands. Do they stick to what they know, or do they branch out and try to be more aggressive? But you're up, Mr. Aaron. What you got?
Oh shit, I don't know. I'm kind of just interspersing them, I think. So here, I can show this one a little bit closer, but
Yep.
And I totally got this one because the cover's cooler than the other one. I
start
don't even know if it really is, but I mean, it's just so fucking good. Like he's got your gift right here. Fucking here's Satan's gift. I don't know what it is, but it's fucking gore.
Yep. Yeah, I've got the other cover version.
Yeah, here's the U.S. pressing.
Yeah, that's the one I've got.
Yeah, I mean that's a great cover too. Don't get me wrong, because I'm not hamming it up, but yeah, the other one I sort of wanted to tip my hat with real quick was this is the other one. See, I liked Marty worked on me to get into Tankard because I always kind of written him off as a joke band.
They're good. That's a good album too.
Zombie Attack was good enough to win me over. Marty insisted I get Chemical Invasion though, because that was the real shit, and I liked it so much that I got this one too.
Cool.
So this is like the what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like sort of the culmination of like the Marty Tankard influence on the Metal Theologian trajectory.
See, I haven't heard anything past that album, which I'm told I'm missing out on some stuff, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, see, this is already so corny. As they get cornier and cornier, like each new record cover, like I have to go, oh man, do I really need fucking Mike Tyson on the cartoon for him on a record cover?
Yeah,
in my metal section, But I love this little tour hype sticker.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome for their 4 dates and well, they're big places as far as population, but it's not like Berlin and Munich, like sexy places. It's like working class places.
Right. Well, they're a working class band. They never quit their jobs and they never worried about humongous tours. They just kind of did their thing. They played festivals and played some shows here and there and had fun, which is commendable,
Yeah, and that was one of the things that really I found really interesting about this stuff when I started getting deeper into it is how working class this stuff is. You know what I mean? It's really analogous to England that way,
Yeah. All right, Mr. Allen, what you got?
Okay. Next up, do Hammerheart, Bathory. Obviously, they had switched into full Viking mode by this time, and this one just always has resonated really well with me. Twilight of the Gods, I really like it, the first half of it. The one before this, Bloodfire Death, that one has never quite clicked with me, to be honest. I had it long ago and tried to get into it, and it's like, couldn't quite get over the hump, but this one really wowed me the first time I heard it. It's just like I had never heard anything like this. I got this in the mid 90s, and yeah, it's just like this was, I knew their earlier material, of course, but this was such a departure, and it was just such an interesting sound, such a well put together album. Cawthorne takes his time. The songs are very vivid. Really paints just this great mental picture. They're long songs, they're somewhat repetitive, but it just works incredibly well. And, culminates one of my favorite Bathory songs with One Road to Asa Bay at the end. And that's always just such a killer track. It's not, a banger or anything like that, but it just lyrically paints, such a good story. And it's just, I just find it's very reflective of the whole Viking sort of mythology of here's the story, the Christians are showing up and these folks kind of know this is the beginning of the end and they are not going to be able to stop it. It's the song reflects that fatalism in Norse mythology, that Ragnarok's going to happen and we're going to fucking die and we can't stop it. We know it and we can't do a damn thing to stop it.
Yeah.
And you just get that same vibe from the story that he's telling in One Road to Asa Bay, and it just from the first time I heard this, I'm just like, this is very different and this is very special. And of course, there's been tons of Viking metal bands that have come in the wake. Nothing I've ever heard comes close to Hammerheart. This is the Viking album for me, and probably always will be. And found it in the used CD bin of a record store in Lubbock, Texas.
Wow.
Now you tell me how the fuck this ended up in a used CD bin in Lubbock, Texas, and you are a smarter person than I, because I've been trying to figure that out for 25 years.
The only ones I ever seen around here is the Craze or Crazy or whatever it is, pressings from Canada.
Mm.
Or you gonna say, Aaron?
I was going to say Texas is pretty huge for metal, though. I mean, not that it was centered in Lubbock or anything, but I don't think it strains credulity that much that someone would leave San Antonio for a job in Lubbock and bring his CDs with him.
In talking with the folks that ran the record store, it turned out Lubbock did have a pretty decent little scene through especially mid to late 80s into the very earliest 90s. That bands would stop if they were playing Austin and they were on their way to Vegas or something else. There's nowhere else to stop, so you stopped in Lubbock to at least get a date in for a night and make a few bucks.
Well, Dallas, yeah.
And so then by the time when I moved to Lubbock, it was 96, and most of the folks, of course, had gotten out of metal, and so the record stores were just packed with everybody's old collection that had been sitting there gathering dust on the shelf for years. I'm just like, this one's $3. This one's $3. This one's $3. This one's $3. I'm getting sealed Candlemass albums for $3. A lot of Noise, the CDs, that compilation, the Doomsday News, Marty, they had that CD in the same bin for $8 on CD.
Nice.
Crazy stuff. They had Atheist original pressing CDs for $5. And the guy, he learned my name pretty fast. He's like, "You're the first person in years to come here and buy any of this shit." I'm just
That's why it was priced so low.
You're going to get a lot of my money over. I'll be here for a couple of years. You're going to get a good chunk of my paycheck. Trust me. So we got along just fine.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, Bathory. That's Blood on Ice might be. It's obviously sort of a tighter album overall.
That's my favorite Viking.
Put together, play better. But Hammerheart just has a really special place for me as that sort of introduction to that side of Bathory and that sound, and just really blew me away.
And I read somewhere or saw an interview with him or something where he said that Manowar was his main influence on that whole shifting towards the Viking stuff. He kind of tried to, and you can hear it. I mean, that plodding, triumphant.
The Hail to England era.
Yeah.
Manowar. Yeah. That would make sense.
Yep. All right. Let's see here.
Your turn, Marty.
This one, I could have picked any of the first three, but I keep coming back to this. This is probably my favorite Corner album. Nice. I think probably Punishment for Decadence was my first album by them, which, one of those dark techie thrash albums that just kind of blow you away. But, these guys were always technical, but always, again, maintained very memorable riffs. And there's a dark power on this album that really did not show up on any of their later releases, to me anyway. I think it's a very dark record. It's very moody. It's very well written. Just starting to borderline on getting techier. But I love this album. Probably my favorite of the Corner stuff. Although the first three to me are perfect. I even like Mental Vortex. That one that had to grow on me because they started to get a little more there's a little bit more of a rock element, not like rock and roll, but like the riffs had a little bit more of a rock spring in their step. It was still thrash, but they were a little more catchy, a little more stripped down. But and Grin, man, I hate that fucking record. I have it in my collection, but I can never bring myself to listen to it. But this is a fucking ripper, and definitely something you should own if you're a thrash fan, for sure.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I can hang with Grin, actually.
What? I need to spin it again. I don't know how many times I've spun it, but it did not sit well with me every time. So,
yeah, I mean, something. When I got that, it was because when those reissues were coming out and Farley was hyping some of that shit. I was like, I don't have to be a curmudgeon. I can check these later ones out too. Fuck it. And I really wanted to love Grin, just sort of because it looks so like anti-metal, just like it's sort of a, contrarian thing to do, but it's not my favorite. I like those first two. No More Colors is great too, but it's
Yeah.
hard for me to pull that one with that cover, man.
Yeah,
I know
that
I've said
No More
this
Color
before.
album started to get really emotional. The lyrics started getting like really personal, I think, on that stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Less social, political, and more introspective, I think. I don't know. That's just the feel I got out of them back when I was young and read all the lyrics from front to back. They were very important to me. Nowadays, after years of being beaten down by Satan crap and who knows what else, I don't even care anymore about the lyrics, typically. But what you got, Aaron?
I just realized I pulled out a steam hammer by accident, so I just put that away. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to
Personal foul.
That's another conversation.
between Running Wild and this record. I kind of had to think about which one was sort of the most German, or which one sort of cemented me in my love for that German sound more.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think I might have to just declare a tie. This is like, I mean, they should play this at like cultural festivals, like German like heritage societies, and like places like Cleveland and Pittsburgh and fucking, because it just sounds that German, man. There's just something so awesome about it. It's just perfect. Like even the ballad is great on this, and like again, it's sort of if Jurgen says it sucks, I won't argue with him, because Yesterday is great because it kind of sucks,
Yeah,
it's just awesome.
It's got some killer stuff on it, and yeah, it could be, if heavy metal was biology, that could be the type specimen for the species of German '80s metal.
Yeah, like the singer is just like such a perfect like cross. Like he can carry a tune, but like you wouldn't know it from his fucking tone.
Chris's voice is so over the top. I do have trouble with his vocals sometimes, just because his voice is so gravelly, over the top all the time, that it is a stumbling block for me on Gravedigger.
Really?
Sometimes.
That wasn't for me, then.
It's not a deal breaker, but it does sometimes. It's just like, oh man, if you could back it off just a little more.
Yeah, they're still putting out albums. I mean, shit, they've been together forever, and they're still cranking them out.
Yeah, they're a band that I'm not familiar with much of their newer stuff. I've heard one or two, but it seems like they've really found kind of their rhythm. A lot of their newer albums get more consistent sort of thumbs up from folks than the older ones do. A lot of folks the older albums you'll see, some folks will love them and some folks really don't like them. But yeah, with like Tunes of War Forward, folks are kind of like, yeah, okay, they're just kind of consistently putting out pretty solid stuff. So it's almost like, they did their, wild and crazy young thing, then they did the goddamn duck thing, and once they got it all out of their system and got back together, and they kind of they found their stride, and they've just been doing that kind of blue collar workman approach of let's just put out a solid album each time, take a couple of years, put one together, and rinse repeat.
That Digger album was another one of those that I always kind of wanted to like start declaring my love for, just as sort of a contrarian thing to do. But honestly, I've never even been able to bring myself to buy that thing. I've never owned a copy of that record. No matter how cheap I ever saw it, I'd look at it and go, no, man.
Indeed. Am I back up, Marty?
You're up.
Okay, let's go with something. Let's get out of the 80s for a little bit. Jump to the 90s. Gamma Ray, Land of the Free. Fourth album, Kai retakes his rightful place at the mic, and a glorious power metal album. I loved it so much because listening to it when I got it back around 95, 96 when it came out, it was kind of like, finally I'm getting the follow-up to Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 that I've always wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And it's just a great album. The first three albums for Gamma Ray, they're spotty for me. The first album is okay, but Kai is kind of getting all this, 70s hard rock jams out of his system. The second album's all over the place. I never could quite get into that Sigh No More album. The third album, they're getting there. They're coming back around. She's like, okay, let's just do the heavy metal thing. But it's like the first side of it's pretty good, and then it loses me in the second half of the album. But this one is
Perfect.
It's glorious. Start to finish.
Those first three albums too, I felt exactly the same way as you did when I heard them for the first time. But going back, I think they Gamma Ray did a 2 CD set called Skeletons in the Closet or something like that,
Yeah.
where Kai went back. They did it live, maybe they didn't. I can't. My brain's a little fuzzy on that, but they redid all the Ralph stuff with Kai singing, and it made me hear those songs and say, "Wow, these are good songs." I went back to those early albums and I'm like, what was I thinking? These are good albums. It's just not Kai singing. You know that,
and that may be the stumbling block for me. I've never been the biggest fan of Ralph's vocals. Like the Tyron Pace albums, I did not like him singing on those. The Gamma Ray stuff, he's getting a little better, but it's still kind of like his voice grates on me just a little bit. He always got better. I mean, he sounded a lot better, like in Primal Fear. It's like, okay, now he's not bad, but
total Halford clone if he wanted.
Wants to be Halford, but nobody's quite Halford, and his voice always just kind of it hits that one nerve in your head where you're just like, this is bothering me just enough that it is messing with my ability to like this album.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know they had redone the albums with Kai on vocals. They might click better with me with these.
It's like a 2 CD set. It's like a compilation of. I've seen it. I can't remember exactly. I could go get it, but I'm not.
Yeah, I've seen it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I never really paid much attention because I was like, yeah, the first 2 albums redone. Okay, I didn't like them the first time that much. I don't really need them. I remember too with the Heading for Tomorrow, the first one. Gamma Ray was another one of those where I knew Kai had this new band, and I, was desperate to hear and check it out, and couldn't find it for the life of me. And wandered into the local college record store one day, and there was a used copy of it sitting there for $8. And I'm just like looking at them, I was like, who in the blue hell in this town brought a Gamma Ray CD in and sold it to a used CD store?
Yeah.
I mean, I would see, metal stuff sometimes, but never anything like that, or very, very rarely. So, I scoured the whole store. They hadn't brought anything else in. There was no other German power metal kind of stuff at all. Just this one disc sitting there by itself. So, of course, I bought it, took it home. It was worth $8.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't order it as an import.
Yeah. Hey, Aaron, you've got background music on or something? Because it's like a weird noise coming through your side. I muted you and it is on your. Oh, it just stopped. Whatever it was, it stopped.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hear anything.
Okay. It's done now. I guess I'm up next. This album, big deal for a lot of reasons. Celtic Frost, Morbid Tales. Back when I was younger, I still love this early Celtic Frost stuff. And Monotheist, I think, is the art piece that they always wanted to make. They finally nailed it. Because everybody rants and raves about In the Pandemonium. Man, when that album came out, I was pissed. That was not what I wanted to hear. Going back now, I listen to it. I like parts of it, but you don't start an album off like that with Mexican Radio by Wall of Voodoo. Bad choice. But the first 2 Celtic Frosts are great. This one's probably my favorite, other than I really love Monotheist. I think that is just a work of excellence. But these guys are early on in the noise pantheon, and they're endlessly influential. And these songs, if you think about it, this Celtic Frost stuff is kind of different than the rest of the bands that were on the label. I mean, I think there's a technical flair to a lot of the German thrash stuff. I mean, these guys aren't German. They're Swiss. But, Noise was a German label, so there's a lot of German bands. And there was like a sophistication to that thrash. Even when it was super dark and aggressive, maybe technical, there was a songwriting sophistication. These songs, to me, they're kind of like a blunt object. They're just like all attack, all power. There's not a lot of real in-depth technical flair to them. They're just well-written, blunt songs, to the point, loud. And that's part of the charm of this stuff. I guess I'm not cool because this is the Metal Blade version, but it did come out on.
That's what I have.
Yeah, but
I've got that one too.
And there used to be I've talked about this in the video before, but there used to be a store in Traverse City called New Moon Records. I bought this for.
You win.
And it's got the poster and the order form in it too, and it's in great shape.
Very nice.
Crazy, I got lucky. But yeah, Celtic Frost, endlessly important. But yeah, they're like before the Industrial Revolution. They were where people were still killing each other with rocks and spears. That's what Celtic Frost strikes me as.
Yeah. I mean, that first one, I mean, it was very much, it came fast on the heels of the Hellhammer material, which was, very raw and primitive. They were wanting to advance as songwriters, but that one, they were still kind of crawling out of the bunker, where all the Hellhammer stuff was recorded at.
I got to tell you, though, I feel like the hype on, actually, I'm getting an echo now. Like the hype on like the whole sort of process between that early Hellhammer versus the Celtic Frost and that sort of transition. I feel like on the one hand, people say, "Oh yeah, well Hellhammer was just like total brutality," and so they were trying to like get more refined, like what you just said with Celtic Frost. And okay, I can hear that, but like on the other hand, you can also hear how brutal that is compared to other things. So almost like I almost feel like whenever people talk about it and like address it from the one angle or the other, that angle gets overrepresented. Yeah. And that record just sort of sits like in a pool of mercury or something, just sort of perfectly still.
Yeah.
Even separately from other Celtic Frost records.
Yeah. I've always gotten the sense a little bit, Aaron, that, Tom probably plays up that difference a little bit, because you always get the sense for a long time at least, when you read stuff, then when he talked about Hellhammer, that it almost like emotionally scarred him in a way that he really disliked, how the band was, put down as, being so, this raw, primitive joke of a band almost. And that, he was really wanting to distance himself from that material for a very long time. So that probably plays into why people talk up that gap so much. But you're right. I mean, yeah, it's better, but it's still, as Marty said, it's still a blunt force instrument.
And that's what's great about it, but you can also hear like what they're going for. Like given the level of like technical ability, I think their ideas were really ambitious, but like usually when you say that, you mean, but they didn't quite succeed. You know what I mean? And with Celtic Frost, there's none of that. It's like they had these ambitious ideas. They like packaged it in a way that was simple enough that they could execute it really well. And it was fucking great.
It's really sad. I mean, after reading everybody, I'm going to show this real quick. If you don't have this book, Damn the Machine by David Gelke, this came out in 2017. It is a very comprehensive book about Karl Walterbach and Noise Records. Very interesting. It's got in the back an entire Noise discography, every single release. Goes through the entire history of the band, and I was quite shocked at how much he treated people like Tom Warrior and Celtic Frost. Even though they're a very influential band, he must not have thought very highly of them and treated them like dog shit. And it's kind of sad. It's, these, of course, they're young, they're new, this is all new stuff. I mean, who would have thought that, some of these bands went on to have as long of careers as they have and have been such influential forces in metal, and to know that the guy that was putting out their records and sending them on tour was not paying them enough to feed themselves, It's kind of sad.
You definitely get the vibe from, passages in that book that, Walter was never very big on Celtic Frost from day one, that there was almost
Creator. He kind of treated Creator like shit too.
Yeah. That they were more of a reluctant signing to some extent. It was like, we'll try this, but it didn't seem like he was really that big on the band.
He seemed to really love the money that Halloween made him, and he seemed to really love Running Wild.
Yeah.
And Tankard, because Tankard never bitched because they didn't care, because they weren't going to be any more than just a working man's band. They were just going to, on the weekends, play a show after working all week, Yeah. So they didn't really care what they signed. Where something like Sabbath, they signed a really shitty contract that they should have never signed.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, that's what a lot of these young bands do. They don't know what they're getting into. They jump into it. They sign their lives away. And then they're like, 5 years later, like, why don't I have any fucking money? All my records are selling. Why am I broke? Well, it sucks. It sucks. Anyway, you're up, Aaron. While you're doing that, I have to go use the little boys' room. So I'll be right back. So talk long.
All right, Aaron, we're taking
over. The band I probably talked about the most. Actually, let me show this one first. Well, no, I already let the cat out of the bag. So this is the first Voivod record that I got, and I actually listened to this in the store. Not this copy, because this is a combat one. I got this when I moved back, but I'd heard of this band because I saw them on a list. Their name was Voivod, and they had a record called Roar, and I was like, I can't believe that's like real. like that a band actually called themselves that. So I saw this at a shop and went, oh my God, it's actually Voivod. That's a real band. Look how weird those fucking guys look. So and I checked it out and I was like, oh, this is going to suck. And instead it blew me away. I was like, I was like listening to it going, I can't believe how good this is. Like, this is just insanely good. And I've got to be hearing something wrong. And I kept going, like trying to correct myself in my head. And no, Voivod's just that good. So that was it. And I've kind of been a fan ever since. So I don't think this was their latest record when I got this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dimension Hatred was already out. But yeah, I can tell the record store I got it from based on this, how the sticker came off. I bought this at Chris's Warped Records in Cleveland. But that's it. Yeah, Voivod.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that Outer Limits is finally getting a reissue too, although the way they did it was pretty shitty because I don't think anyone's going to actually get one. Did you even see that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, what's up with that?
Fucking Real Gone Records made some sort of deal to do a reissue of the Outer Limits on LP.
That's cool, but
like we've only been waiting for this like for 20 years. Well, they did the 1500 run.
Oh, geez.
You know, I and they didn't really announce it very well. I'm on their mailing list. I didn't get an email. Mr. Bizarro told me, and I was like, oh well, shit. I better go to the website. So I was like, well, okay, no brainer here. So I pre-ordered one. And I thought about it, like maybe a few hours later, like later in the evening, maybe 4 or 5 hours later, I was like, maybe I should get an extra one of that just to have, because
sure.
So I go and they're already sold out.
Yeah.
People have been waiting for decades, huh?
How many did you say they pressed?
1,500. And I haven't seen them yet. Okay, so maybe they'll change their mind and do more. But it was announced as a 1,500 run, and it was sold out. As far as I know, a few hours after I ordered my copy. So maybe I got one of the last ones. But again, I never got an email announcing it or anything. So,
yeah, that's crazy. The super limited print run things just bug the piss out of me. I get it with smaller, newer bands that they're not sure how much of a reaction they'll get. They don't want to sit on a ton of stuff forever. But when you're reissuing something like Voivod, are you really worried you're not going to sell it? Really?
Well, something. Here's the thing, man. Like Outer Limits, a lot of people like it, but I really think that a lot of why people like that one so much is because it's been so hard to come by for so long. You can get it on CD, right? But if you want the vinyl, it's like, that's hardcore, because that's like the holy grail of Voivod records,
It's like it was a better release to me at the time. When Angel Rat came out, I was pissed. I was pissed at the direction change.
Yeah, I wasn't with it either.
I like it, but man, I didn't like it. And Outer Limits was a step back in the right direction, I thought at the time. And that album has actually aged really well for me. It's a really good record.
Well, I love all that shit now, but the thing is, I don't know. I would think I don't blame them for not doing like, a huge like old style, run on something like this. But I think they could probably sell more than 1,500.
You'd think.
Yeah.
All right. Am I up next, or did I skip you, Alan? Am I up next?
I'm after. I think I'm next.
You're next.
I've been in the middle so far.
Right on.
Okay, this one, a lot of folks probably won't see coming. Camelot, Fourth Legacy from '99. It's a absolutely brilliant. It's a U.S. band doing a brilliant take on European power metal in 1999. Bands out of Florida. They were one of the few metal bands that Noise signed, and they did all their early stuff on Noise basically until the label kind of went under. Their first two albums had a different vocalist, and they're pretty mediocre. They're not horrible, but they're nothing to write home about. Where the band's fortunes changed was on the third album, they recruited a vocalist from Norway named Roy Kahn, who had been in a band called Conception, who had been on Noise Records in the early 90s and did a few albums. And he's a killer vocalist, really good, smooth, crooning, power metal kind of sound. And he really, really started to get the band turned around. The first album with Roy was their third release. It was Siege Perilous. And it's okay. It's not a great album. You can tell they're trying to find their footing. But on this one, number 4, it all comes together perfectly. Again, it sounds like 90s European power metal, but it's got an American take on it. Every album is a bit different. Yes, exactly. What's on the screen right there. This album starts a run of 4 studio albums that are just damn near flawless. With Roy on vote, they could not do any wrong in the early 2000s. This one, I had heard their earlier stuff, and yeah, I wasn't big on the first 2 albums. And then this one got reviewed in Metal Maniacs. It was Johnson. What was his name? Something Johnson? Matt Johnson, yeah, reviewed it and gave it a really good review. And he knew his traditional power metal stuff. So I was like, okay, note to self, next time I go to a record store, better look for that. And they had it, and I bought it without ever hearing a note of it. And instantly just like, oh, goddamn, this is awesome. Love the album. Every song's good in. The whole lineup is good. Casey Grillo is an excellent drummer. He'd been in some other projects before, like Siege's Even, I think. And the lineup just clicks. Every song's got kind of its own little unique feel to it. Even the little acoustic ballad is beautiful. The closing song has this really cool, moody atmosphere to it. The straight up, just power metal galloping numbers are just top notch. Can't go wrong. Camelot, they really, to me, they kind of took the mantle from Blind Guardian at this point. Blind Guardian had done this incredible string of power metal albums through the 90s. But after Nightfall and Middle Earth came out, they kind of got into that rotation of, well, now we're going to take 5 years to record this very long album, and then we're going to take another 5 years to record another very long album. And in the meantime, Camelot's just like, hold our beer. We'll start doing an album every couple of years, and we'll take that ball and we'll run with it.
Yeah.
For the early to mid 2000s, those 4 albums, Fourth Legacy, Karma, Epica, and then Black Halo, they could do no wrong. After that, yes, they still did 1 or 2 more with Roy. The band kind of shifted direction subtly through that time. On this one, it's just very straightforward, sort of looks like European power metal. They shifted with kind of more and more of a gothic romantic kind of vibe. Yeah, everybody's wearing a lot more black with each album.
Sick mullet, second dude down.
They were doing more and more. They always had 1 or 2 videos, and they were getting just more and more gothy imagery. It's not bad; it worked for them, but eventually got to a point where, that was, becoming a little more predominant. And so by the time they did, I think it's Ghost Opera is starting to wane a little bit. But not one a lot of people would probably expect me to show in, best noise records, but I love this album to death. I'm
going to check it out.
It's a pinnacle for European. Again, it's a US band playing European flavored power metal and doing it perfectly.
Right on. Well, this one for me, this is not a noise release because I used to have the noise cassette. When I bought this reissue on Dive Bomb, I gave my tape away. But Scanner Hypertrace. This album is, if it wasn't for Halloween, these guys would have probably been huge because they're kind of, well, let's be honest, they're kind of swinging from Halloween's nuts on this album a little bit. Keeper era maybe mixed with Walls of Jericho, but it's basically a concept album around space thing, and it's so good. And check out this guy's helmet. He's got the hair helmet. I love it. But these guys are great. No one ever really talks about Scanner, and this is probably their best album, in my opinion anyway. They've gone through a lot of singers and a lot of weird shit, and they finally, their last album I heard, their newest one, is quite good. It's kind of a return. They're trying to return to form, but this is a very well written. The songs are very strong, perfect structures, great harmonies, very much in the early Halloween vein, but they didn't really get silly on this album. It's kind of a serious concept, and it's just really well written. The one after this, Terminal Earth, is when they started to get kind of silly metal thrash type stuff going on. And I like that album, but it just doesn't have the quality found in the songs on Hypertrace. Definitely give this one a spin.
Yeah, that's a killer album. We might hear a little bit more about it in a little while.
All right. This is another kind of show movie because it's cool.
That is
This is the I actually found this in the wild too in San Francisco. But this is one of the very first Noise records.
Yep.
I think this was, in fact, their first one with original stuff that wasn't just a license from Metal Blade. But I could be wrong about that. It has Sato on. It's funny because they're like the featured band.
I could check for you. I have the Noise Grimoire here in front of me.
Oh, right on. But yeah, like there you go. Like on the inner sleeve, you had that picture of them.
What code is that, Aaron?
Yeah, you're right, Aaron. It is. It was their first original release.
Yep, it's N0003. Came out in '84.
Yep. Yeah, the only two that came before it were where they licensed Bitch from Metal Blade, and they licensed Metal Massacre Volume 3 from Metal Blade also.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who's on that, Aaron?
Yeah, this is really kind of a weird mix. So it has Sato, right? But then it has Gravedigger with Violence and 2,000 Light Years from Home. So kind of a weird song choice there too, right? Then there are a couple Railway tunes. They're great. Iron Force, Rated X, and Running Wild. Mm-hmm. With Chains and Leather.
Sucks.
Yeah, and Adrian too, with like a little cross in the logo. It's not even a logo, just like in the type. They like had to create a character for that. Their font set.
Yep. Yeah, that's a cool compilation.
Yeah, and as much for sort of what it is as the reality of it. The fact is, this is really kind of a low budget comp, kind of cheesy art from a label that was pretty obviously finding its way. But as sort of a moment in time, it's great. And it's a cool record to listen to. I actually enjoy this record and we'll put it on for pleasure. So there you go. That's the winning combo, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's why we listen to these for pleasure, hopefully.
Walter talked about that one some, and that and the death metal compilation. That he really used those, as sort of a thermometer to gauge which bands he should sign and give a full record contract to, and which ones wouldn't. So he really used that and the death metal comp to circulate them out and be like, which of these bands will the press hype for me? Which ones will get some noise generated about them? Okay, let's give those bands a contract, and the ones that the press just kind of overlook and that talk down, I'm not going to sign those. So yeah, he was using it very much as a tool in the early days. That's kind of what he did with his
the punk label he did before Noise. Didn't he put out a lot of compilations essentially and was doing really well with them?
Yeah. It wasn't just compilations. There were definitely a couple compilations on AGR. But and a lot of licenses too. It was a similar formula for sure.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Allen. Cool record, by the way. I've never seen that, Aaron. Very cool.
Oh.
Let's see. Next one on my stack was Copycat and Talkmore Scanner. Another one that was in the $8 bin on the Lubbock, Texas UCD circuit in the mid-90s.
Yep.
Price sticker still on it.
Now trying to buy that vinyl today, it's a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to think about it. But agree with everything you said, Marty. It's Halloween in outer space.
Yep.
And I'm fine with that. I got no problem with that whatsoever. It always struck me as funny that, while it's a concept album, the songs are out of order. If you want to understand the story, you have to jump around. At one point, I think I had written little numbers in marker or had put a Post-it note in here. So, actually, I think I still have in pencil there, wrote, the track list so I could listen to I could program the CD player to play it so I could actually hear the story in sequence if I wanted to.
This influence comes from your Hobbit LPs. You got to hear the story.
30 years later, I'm still drawing all over the record sleeves. But yeah, very cool album. This was another one where I kind of had heard the name in hushed tones, but never had heard a note of them. Saw it sitting there in the UCD bin, just I think that's the same band. Hey, there's a Noise logo on it. That's $8 I'm going to spend right now.
Yep.
And never looked back. It's really cool. One other little tidbit on the story part. There's one song that's part of the story that's on that Doomsday News compilation you showed earlier. That's not on here.
Yep.
So that song very much ties into the whole Galactos concept that they had going on.
Great song too.
Yeah, the follow-up to this is a tough listen in some ways. They had some lineup changes, and if this was their version of Keeper 1, Terminal Earth very much felt like their version of Keeper Part 2, where they were trying to be a little more lighthearted and working, sort of a little, some songs that were meant to be kind of silly to an extent. And that one, I like it, parts of it, but it's one of those times I went back to it over and over again, and I think I've bought it twice trying to get it and just never could quite get the thumbs up enough to keep it. And then, they came back after a few years and have done more albums. I've heard some of that stuff, and it seems pretty decent.
It's pretty
I don't
good.
know it well enough. Yeah, I don't know it well enough to comment on it, but I know they did some more stuff later that was certainly not embarrassing. It was worth checking out.
They've got an album called Scantropolis, which is probably my least favorite. They got a lady singer on that one.
Oh, okay. I know they did Mental Reservation.
It wasn't good. Wasn't a good album.
I think Mental Reservation was the one I may have owned a copy of briefly, or somebody sent me a dub cassette copy of it or something. I heard it at one point back in the day. But yeah, Hypertrace, that's the shit.
Which band was this, Jurgen?
Oh, I missed part of the comment there. Let's go back and look.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, it's good. Produced our first album, 96. Oh, huh.
All right. Well, we've already talked about this one, but History of a Time to Come. I was going to just put both of them on the same list, but that would have been cheating, so I didn't. But I think Dreamweaver might be my favorite just because it's a very sophisticated album. The riffs are great. The amount of vocals on it and the way he presents them is very impressive. Very rapid fire, very busy. The lyrics are very smart. But this album, it's very, very good, very satanic, tongue-in-cheek Satanism, with very smart themes woven within it. It's great. Really excellent, aggressive English thrash metal album. Ranks right up there with Onslaught's The Force. Very good. Very good. You're up, Mr. Aaron.
How close to The Force is that record, really?
I think I like The Force better.
Okay. Took you a second, though.
No, I think they're very similar, being satanically themed. And
I think I'd pick History. It's been a long time since I've heard The Force, so it's a hard one for me to compare. I'd probably take History, though. But The Force is very, very good.
I think The Force is an English band's reshuffling of early Metallica style, but it's enough of their own flavor to really sell those songs. What was the singer's name? Psy? I can't remember, but he's a great singer. I love the feel of the songs. Good dark atmosphere to it. Really great stuff. Yeah. How does it compare to History? I don't know.
See, I think I like The Force better, but I also have a lot more history with that one than with History.
Yeah. I've
actually never owned that Sabbath at all. So, and the Force I've had for, since the 90s.
Oh, you don't own History? Oh, okay.
No.
I'll keep an eye out for one.
Come across it. Yeah, thanks. I'm definitely the market for one. All right. Well, anyway, I'll do it.
Yep.
Someone was going to show it. I'll take that upon myself. Kind of came to these guys late, man, but I love them. And they were fantastic live. Like, I saw them live before I liked them. And I was like, holy shit, these guys are fantastic. And then I went back and still took me a couple of years to get into the records. And part of that was just because Endless Pain is so much more difficult to listen than this one, frankly. But this is just, I mean, you can't beat it. It's
perfect. It's a perfect album, really.
It really is. I mean, even things like, when they have a couple different guys in the band singing, sometimes that can be a bad sign. You know what I'm saying?
I like it in this case. I like it.
In this case, it's awesome. Like, they all bring their A game. The songs are perfect for them. It doesn't feel like there's sort of, politics going on in the band. It just feels like this is how we put it together and this is how it is, because it's amazing.
So aggressive.
Yeah. So the combat one actually too, unfortunately, but has a noise logo on it.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Allen.
Okay. Yep. Going to rewind another one here. I had to pick this one. And yeah, this one, take away everything else and just go with, Tommy T. Barron's guitar work alone makes this worth the price of admission and
Absolutely.
high praise. The guy is just fucking nuts, and nobody really ever sounds like him, and he doesn't really ever sound like anybody to me. Very unique sound and style, and it just is amazing to just listen to that. So yeah, this was another one out of the Texas used bin. I think this one was only $5.
What a treasure trove, man! You hit gold.
I bought so much shit in Lubbock, Texas. It was embarrassing at times. I would come back to the play with my roommate, and I'd have 50 vinyl albums and 13 CDs, and just be like, "What the fuck? You just bought a pile that size last week." I'm just like, "Yeah, I know, I got a problem." But
a wonderful problem.
But yeah, this is definitely my favorite Corner album. I like all of the first 4 pretty good. But this is the one that, this is the one. The others, relatively speaking, are a far distant second place. It's weird. It's got all these little instrumental tracks, but even some of those are really, really cool. Which one is that I like a lot? Nosferatu. Is just this cool little section and stuff. So yeah, definitely one that never. Well, anytime you mention it, people are always like, "Oh yeah, that's a great record." But at the same time, you don't hear people actually mention it that much. So always one that I like to throw up there and make sure it gets a little love.
You talk about his guitar work. I mean, on Punishment, the song Skeleton on Your Shoulder, holy crap. Some of the riffs on there are just so amazing.
Yeah, it's funny because, it's obviously very technical, but he's very fluid. So it doesn't get this kind of cold, clinical sound that a lot of tech shredders get, which I don't mind that to a point, but it can get old fast. He doesn't do that when he's playing technical. It doesn't sound like that ever.
He has a very organic sense of melody in his technical playing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a very nice way to put it. I think we're back over to you then, Marty.
Okay. We've got, it had to be coming, right?
Oh, you broke the seal.
it ranks right up there because, man, when this thing came out, I still do. I worship this album. This album has got the best metal song ever written, which is Ride the Sky. If you think that that's not a true statement, you probably need to listen to Ride the Sky again and reevaluate your position on it, because this is a perfect album, and that song, this is the twin solos that these guys kind of pioneered it, really. I mean, just that locked in, super melodic, fast, tremolo picked or staccato picked solos, fucking great, in perfect sync, masterful songwriting. This is not a power metal album. This is a speed metal album.
Yeah.
This was before it all made the shift, which they kind of did with Keeper. I mean, Keeper of the Seven Keys could very well be, one of the most early European power metal albums that I think a lot of power metal for a long time has strived to be that. But this is a speed metal record, and any bands that mimic this style, I want to hear it. It's just so good, so fast, so aggressive, so melodic, so well written. I mean, all the members of this band are at the top of their game, and Marcus is an amazing bass player. Liketh, him and Kai are a perfect unit, dual guitar troupe. Mm-hmm. Ingo was an amazing drummer. This is just a great band, and it would have been interesting to hear them do this for a little bit longer, this style, but it all played out the way it was supposed to. And Halloween remains one of my favorite bands, but this was an amazing start. And their EPs before it, the self-titled and Judas, all worth, definitely hunt that shit down, because it's worth it. It's just as good as this stuff, for sure. So yeah, I broke the seal with Halloween. Now you guys can, other than Aaron, he can't catch up because he doesn't know yet. He doesn't know the power.
I'm out of records too. Like I said, pull out a 10. Because I thought about pulling the Halloweens, and I was like, I don't really have that kind of personal relationship with those,
No, that's cool.
Well, we're just going to sit here and look at you for a minute.
That's fine. I'll still opine on the shit that you're pulling out, too. I was actually, part of why I was asking where Alan was in the South is because I'm fascinated by the phenomenon of like country folks discovering Coroner. So like it just because Farley did that too. I mean, it sounds like your story is a little bit different, so I didn't ask directly. It seems like a different trajectory, but Farley is like this big Coroner fan too, and like growing up somewhere in the country in Georgia, I'm like, where the fuck did you find anything by Coroner? It's like that shit was just around. Like Halloween wouldn't surprise me so much because they're pretty huge, but like like the nearest city is Macon, and somehow you discovered Coroner. You guys that seems like you did the same thing, Alan, with different bands, though.
Yeah.
Don't you guys kind of live close to each other at this point? Aren't you in the same state at least?
We're in the we're in the same state, kind of.
Oh yeah, Alan and I are. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on opposite ends of the state, so it's a good 4 or 5 hours in between.
Well, where are you? You mentioned it the other day, and I don't remember it. I feel like an asshole. What part of the state are you in?
Oh, I'm in the upstate near Clemson.
Oh, okay. So I thought you were closer to the PD for some reason, like Sumter, that area.
No, no. I was in Columbia for several years, but now I'm up here.
Oh, that's probably it. Okay. Well, good. That's convenient because I go up to Greenville, so that's the direction I go in when I go up there.
Oh, yeah.
COVID's over, I'll probably see you.
Yeah, if you're ever up this way, definitely give me a holler.
He's not going to show you any of his honey holes at the record stores because he doesn't want you dipping.
Oh no, there's 3 good ones. You probably already know them, but we'll get you to all 3 if need be.
I do know them. We've only got one here in Charleston, though. I'll tell you.
Oh really? I would have thought there'd have been more.
There are a couple, but there's a lot more in Greenville.
Huh? Interesting.
And there's a lot more nearby too, because from here, Savannah and Columbia are kind of striking distance too. But I get the impression that if you're there, like.
Mm-hmm.
Farley, or not Farley, Eric Weinbender seems to go to Charlotte more often than I do. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I used to go to Charlotte more when I was in Columbia. From Greenville, it's not that it's that much further, but the drive sucks a little bit more because it's all on 85, and they're always doing construction and going through Spartanburg, and all that can be a real mess sometimes. Anyway, way off topic.
You're up, Mr. Allen.
Oh, okay. Yep. I'll just keep copying Marty, and we'll talk a little bit more about Celtic Frost. Both the first Celtic Frosts are really good, but this is always one I reach for and replay over and over again. For whatever reason, Megatherion doesn't come off the shelf nearly as much as this one. And yeah, the way you described it is spot on. It's like a blunt instrument, but the songs, they're catchy. They've got their own personality. You've got ones that are fast. You've got ones that are very slow. Almost have this very strong doomy vibe to them. And it's always the one I come back to.
They sounded like no one else. They definitely had their own unique style.
They really did. I mean, and maybe it's Switzerland where it was a smaller, a little more isolated area and not as big a scene perhaps as countries like Sweden and stuff had. You made it easier for bands to be more individualistic. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass right now. I'm not sure.
No.
But yeah, this one, I've got it on vinyl too. I just grabbed the CD for whatever reason. But yeah, I've got the same Metal Blade pressing. Metal Blade pressing has, is it like all the tracks from Emperor's Return on it too, I think. Whereas the Noise pressing only has, has the shorter track listing. So in a lot of ways, the Metal Blade one, that's the one I sought out because I wanted the extra songs on it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and that was another one in Lubbock, sealed copy of Emperor's Return on vinyl. They had it, for $5. I'm just like, I'm just going to be a cheeky bastard here and talk to the catcher. I'm just like, all these other records in this bin are $3 each. Can I have this one for $3 instead of $5? They're like, yeah, sure. You're going to actually buy that? I'm just like, for $3 I will. They're like, give me your money. I'm like, yes, sir. Thank you.
Sticking it to the man. $2.
So like $5 for a damn, it's sealed. I mean, but that sounds a little crazy now. But again, the mid-90s, you couldn't give that shit away. Nobody wanted vinyl records in the mid-90s for heavy metal. That stuff had sat on those shelves, and there were 2 stores in Lubbock. Yeah, they were loaded with heavy metal. They couldn't give it away. So yeah, I could go in, pick out 20 records, on vinyl, and just walk up and be like, "You want a $50 bill for these?" They're like, "That was going to be 3 times 20 60." Yes, and yeah, just walk out with as much as I could carry every time I'd get paid. that's pretty much what it did.
That was before everybody priced their records with all stores price their shit through Discogs now.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was pre-eBay, really. Yeah, this was pre-Discogs and pre-eBay, so there was no ordering it online. Just the fact that I stumbled into this little area that had this little scene, and Lubbock had some good rock bands of their own back in the day. They had a really cool band, more hard rock sounding, called Impeccable, and they'd gone by the name Axe before that. Killer guitarist. They'd made a live album like around 79, 78. Really good stuff. So, I mean, there was a local music scene there for sure. I mean, from Buddy Holly and all that stuff after, but yeah, there had definitely been there had been at least some kind of small hardcore contingent of heavy metal fans that all grew up and cut their hair and sold their records, and I bought all of them.
That's right. You win. All right, this one, perfect album, Dimension Hatros. Yeah, Killing Technology rules. First album's fun. Second album is a driving, bloody knuckle album. But this album to me is perfect, other than the bonus track at the end, a bad cover of Batman. I think that could have lived on a single. But this is a perfect album. Voivod at their most refined. They took the sloppiness of their early stuff, which, don't get me wrong, I love that sloppiness. They really dialed it in on Killing Technology, and they refined it even more so on Dimension Hatros. The songs are so well written within Piggy's weird tuning. It just gave them such a otherworldly sound. And songs like Brain Scan, probably one of my favorite Voivod songs. Macro Solutions to Mega Problems, Chaos Mongers. God, this album, I could put this on, sing along with the whole thing, air guitar to the whole thing, and it never has gotten old. It just gets better with age. Like I said, it's a perfect album by an amazing band. And Nothing Face after this, I also liked, you could tell the production money, they put it to use. It got a lot slicker. They kind of, smoothed out the rough edges that were still kind of on this album. But again, I mean, this is a prime sci-fi album. And I mean, even the cover artwork, everything about this album is fucking perfect. It really is. If you're on the fence about Voivod, you don't know for sure. You might have heard some of the newer stuff, which I think is really good, but this is prime. This should be prime real estate in your CD collection or LP collection, however you want to slice it. But I mean, I could spew for hours on this album. It's that good. It's just a great, perfect album.
Yeah. I think I remember a story about that Batman track, because that's a bonus track just for the CD, right, Marty?
Yeah, it's not on the vinyl.
Yeah, and I think I remember reading somewhere, maybe it's the Damn the Machine book, maybe it's somewhere else, that the CD format was pretty new at the time, and so bands, labels, and all, they felt like they needed to put something extra on the CD as kind of an incentive to get folks to buy that format.
Because there's a lot,
and that's why so many CDs had weird bonus tracks back then.
Yeah, they weren't cheap when they came out.
Yeah, no, I didn't get into CDs right away because I could buy tapes cheaper. It was like 3 tapes for the price of 2 CDs or some weird formula. But yeah, that's why some of those CDs have such weird and sometimes throwaway bonus tracks. They just wanted something to slam on there to make it look like a better buy, since they were having to charge more for them.
I saw you get up, and did you go find something, Aaron? Or
yeah, I did. So there are other noise records, but instead, in the name of South Carolina solidarity, I actually pulled this out for Alan here. So this is Maniacs. It's kind of a loser glam record called Boys Night Out. And I mean, loser glam record in the most loving and affectionate way, because, like if they actually had corporate money behind them, I wouldn't want anything to do with them. But if they're just doing it by themselves in the garage, where are they from? I want to say Spartanburg, but maybe it's Columbia. No, Spartanburg.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've seen that record before, but don't know really anything about it.
There you go, man. Boys Night Out. Honestly, it's not as good as the Carnage record, which is from Columbia.
Oh, here we go.
That's a fucking cool record. This is just a little magnet that came with the reissue on Heaven and Hell Records a few years ago. But yeah, this is a cool South Carolina metal record.
Oh, hell yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to do South Carolina metal sometime.
Well, here's the thing: we have this one, we have Carnage. I mean, I think we just did it.
There's War Cry. Wait, no, Warhead. Warhead from Sumter, Charleston, somewhere in there.
Really? Who? Wait, what were they? Which Warhead?
They did a 7-inch single, and I think it was Heaven and Hell did a compilation or anthology of their stuff too. Give me a minute, and I'll dig up the single.
Shit. All right, yeah, now I want to know.
Hey, Brendan, Overkill's Taking Over hasn't come up because here in the U.S. it came out on Megaforce Atlantic. I had to be reminded by Eric Bauer that came out on Noise as well in Europe. So, yeah, I have only a Megaforce Atlantic version of that album. But my favorite Overkill is Feel the Fire, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't pick anything that was just that Noise licensed from other places.
I think Attico is from here too, actually. Do you remember that band?
I don't know that one.
I'm not sure that it ever got a release before. Hang on.
This one.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, I want to say they were from Charleston, but they may have been Columbia or somewhere in between. They played both the Columbia and Charleston area from like the early to at least the mid to late 80s. I want to say this was done the single was done in 83. Yep, 83.
That's a completely new one to me, man. Never heard of that thing.
Oh, well, I'll get you some like MP3s or something so you can check it out if you want. Or it may be, it's probably on YouTube. Everything else is.
Yeah. No, we'll figure it out. We can take that offline, man. But yeah, I love that.
When we get all done too, we'll log off. We'll chat for a minute, okay? Before everybody.
Yeah. Sorry to get off topic there.
Oh no, you're fine. Absolutely fine.
Okay,
that was my fault. I'll take the hit for it.
No, you're good. I think is it Alan's turn? I think so. Or did you?
I'm declaring it's my turn.
Here's your turn.
Yep. Okay, I could have picked one of probably 8 different albums by this band, but the one I picked the one I play the most, and it's Black Hand In.
Good album.
I could have picked the ones y'all showed for sure. I could have picked Port Royal. I could have picked Death or Glory. Death or Glory is very, very close with this one.
That one's got Solus on it, right? That's a great fucking song.
Yes, it has so many good things on this. This one, for whatever reason, I just reach for. If I'm reaching for Running Wild albums 10 times, I'm going to pick this one 6 times, and I want to pick Death or Glory 4 times.
Yeah.
And so it's that close. But yeah, this album, if you're not familiar with it, if you think of them as just like a cheesy pirate costume band, this is speed metal hell. Just full throttle, neck breaking. Yes, they go slower for some songs and get a little more pacey, but the fast stuff on this is just whiplash speed. Killer stuff. Hard pressed to find a song that I don't like on this album. Everything Running Wild did up through the album after this, Masquerade, is also incredibly good. After that, they start to cool down for me a little bit. Yeah, they had a couple of duds, in the early part of this century, but one of just the most consistent bands, period. In terms of just quality albums, the first 2 with the Dark Judas Priest version, great. The transitional albums with Under Jolly Roger getting into the pirate stuff, great. Port Royal and Death or Glory and Pile of Skulls, just power metal banger after banger. The band just couldn't miss for a long time. You have to get way into the late 90s, early 2000s before they finally had a dud of an album. So
I've kind of being in a band myself and writing music, you just kind of write and whatever comes out. But to be a legacy band like that, a band that's been around and productive since the 80s, I think it's okay for bands to have a dud album once in a while. I mean, they can't all be fucking perfect. It's just sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But for a band like Running Wild, where 80% of their albums are killer, that's a good fucking ratio.
Oh yeah, they're one of my 5 favorite bands of all time, and for that reason, they are. They put out a ton of stuff over a long stretch of time, and 85% of it is high quality material. Tons of bands have a great album here or a great album there, but they only release 2 or 3 and then they're kind of gone. That's great. They may be great albums, but to be like, one of my top bands, you've got to do it for the long haul. You've got to do the Running Wild or Riot, bands like that can really do it for, the long haul and keep consistently putting out top-notch stuff.
Right.
But that's just me.
Here's another perfect album for me. Aaron, did you want to go again, or are you good for a minute?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Perfect album for me. Extreme Aggression, Creator. I could have picked Endless Pain. I could have picked Pleasure to Kill because, they're great. Endless Pain is a little rough around the edges. Pleasure to Kill is a perfect album as well. But this album I've probably listened to 5,000 times easily in my life. Once I start listening to it, I'll listen to it 4 times in a row. I just love the songs on here. They're so savage, yet I keep saying this again, sophisticated. I think the German thrash bands, they really did. Their songwriting got so refined as they went on. They become quite sophisticated in their songwriting. But the first handful of Creator albums, they maintained that intensity. You could tell this was a tight ass live band on this album, and I would have loved to have seen them on this tour. It would have been amazing. But I can relate to the lyrics on here. I love the fire. I love the spirit. I love the songwriting, all the riffs, every riff. This is a golden riff album, 100% golden riffs. And I connected so heavy with this album when Coma Souls came out. I mean, I've been in a video before, saying that I think that album's overrated, and people were wanting to throw hot garbage at me for saying Coma Souls is overrated. But when Coma Souls hit, those songs sounded tired to me in a lot of ways. Yes, I still like it. I can sing along with that album. I love that album, but they sound tired. They sound like they've been touring a lot. They sound burnt out. The songs started to get a little formulaic to me, and it just doesn't have the spirit that this album did. This was the last Creator album for me that really had fire coming out of the speakers, Coma Souls is good. There's some great songs, but maybe there was too much money put into the production. It's too perfect. I don't know, but this is a point in time where the band was perfect, on fire, and amazing.
So Marty, I want to ask a question.
Yep.
Creators out of the German 4 thrash, Creator's the one I know the least about.
Okay.
For whatever reason, it's the non-noise bands I knew the best, Destruction and Sodom.
Yep.
So Creator, start with that? Do you start at the beginning and work forward through your discography? Do you skip
the first album,
ahead?
Endless Pain? I mean, everybody's going to have their own opinion on this, but I think Endless Pain is that's their first album, and that's just a half a step above demo quality.
It's a very difficult listen.
I like it, but you could tell they're very young and they're just kind of figuring out. They're obviously incredibly enthusiastic. The music is very ambitious, but it's kind of like the Celtic Frost. It's kind of like a blunt weapon. It isn't really,
is it kind of like early Sodom difficult to listen, Aaron?
I think Sodom was a lot darker and a little faster and a little more polluted sounding, whereas Creator they had kind of a plotting. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain it. They're kind of on the same. Well, yeah, he says very Destruction. I don't know if I'd say that. I think Destruction.
I don't know if I would either.
Technically,
I almost want to compare it to War and Pain. But War and Pain has better ideas.
Yeah, I agree. That's actually a great connection. Good thinking on that.
It's not technical, I don't know if technical is really the right word. It doesn't have that weird prog songwriting that War and Pain has, though. If you take that out of War and Pain, I think as far as the sort of just getting by, sort of being that feeling sort of being carried up in it, they're almost just going along for the ride with their own music because it's so intense.
Yeah,
that I think the two records have in common.
And there's a knuckle dragging quality to it too. I mean, you could tell they're young and they're just more built on conviction at that point than they are actual skill. Pleasure to Kill, that's an album you should have. If you don't have that album, you should maybe get it. It's a great thrash album. Super savage, really dark, gnarly, great songwriting, good aggression. Would you agree, Aaron? Is that
100%?
Yeah.
And if you get it and you're not into it, file it away and come back to it, because I had to do that for a while. I probably had that record for 10 years before I really fell in love with it. Maybe not full 10, but
yeah, they're one of those bands I've heard. Handfuls of songs here and there. I'll hear half of one of the early albums and never get around to hearing the other side of it. But yeah, it's definitely one of the gaps in my metal knowledge bank.
My second favorite is probably Enemy of God after Pleasure to Kill. So, especially with me, you'd think my next one's going to be Endless Pain or Terrible Certainty, but Enemy of God is awesome.
Certainty. That to me, Terrible Certainty is a great transitional album. There's some amazing songs on that album, but you could tell they're heading to something bigger, which they got on this one. To me, this is Terrible Certainty fully realized and better. But I mean, I still love Terrible. When that album came out, I fucking worshipped it, man. I spun that thing a million times too. But like Toxic Trace, it has like the longest intro ever. It's like you keep thinking the song is going to start and then it isn't. They keep going back in the dan, you know, it just, I mean, you could tell they're trying to figure it out. Their music's becoming more ambitious and they're trying to figure it out, which they fully did on this one. But, and I will say, Aaron, I've been filling in the holes. There's a lot of newer creator I didn't have. I just got Enemy of God not too long ago, and it is good. It is good.
It's fucking fantastic, isn't it?
Different. It's different than their early shit. They got a lot more streamlined and. Oops, what do we got here? Private chat.
That's from like an hour ago.
Oh, right on. But yeah, I think you wouldn't go wrong with Pleasure to Kill. I would start there and see how it sits with you. The riffs on that are fucking evil at times. Just great, evil sounding riffs. And I think I've understand how it influenced some black metal down the road. I think there's a bit of that, you know, evil riff, darkness shit that influenced bands down, you know, up in Norway and all that crap. But I could be talking out my ass there. But anyway, yep. Who was up? Is it? I just talked about that. It's Alan's turn.
Okay, I got one left before we get into like honorable mentions and such. And this should be no surprise. Got to go with this one.
Yep.
This is my favorite heavy metal album ever recorded. So
wow,
this is the one for me. The first time I heard Kisk singing with Halloween, it just blew me away. I had to track it down, you know, at the first chance I got, and yeah, I've never looked back. I've owned 1, 2, 3, 4 different copies of this album, I think. I go through copies of this one, but and you alluded to it earlier, Marty. It launches the transition in power metal to what happened in Europe in the 1990s. This is the blueprint that all those bands would follow, from Stratovarius and Edguy and everyone else. This is what they were looking to and building off of, and taking their own direction with. But yeah, everything on the album's just amazing. If there's one complaint about it, it's that it's a little short. You've got five quote unquote regular songs, and then you got the long epic Halloween, and the little outro. So it's just like it needs like one more, just it needs like Eagle Fly Free tacked onto this one, and then it would round out the length just a little bit. It's a tad short, but it has been my favorite heavy metal album for 30 years now or so.
Wow.
And probably always will be. It'll be a hard one to knock off. The only reason it's not in the frame behind me, I've got Keepers 2 back there, is because my vinyl copy of this is a gatefold cover, and the damn gatefold cover won't fit in the picture frame. So had to go with Keepers 2 for the eye candy in the background.
Right on. All right. My last one.
I'll trade you for my RCA pressing of that one. That doesn't have a gatefold.
I don't know what pressing mine is. I guess it's a noise. I'll go check while Marty.
I think there's a noise.
I'll double check while Marty pulls his last one up.
All right. This is, Aaron already showed it, but probably one of my most influential records I own, to me, in my metal journey, is this album. I mean,
yeah, I only showed it to tease your story.
No, it's all good. No, it's all good. I originally had it on tape, which it got eaten, unfortunately, but I found this on record online for super cheap during the early eBay. It is a mint fucking shape, but it's got Scanner, Rage, Death Row, Coroner, Tankard, Sabbat, Halloween, Vendetta, who are also really good. Go and Live, Stay and Die is awesome.
I thought about pulling them too. I really like Vendetta a lot.
Yeah,
but I just discovered them within the last few years too. So
Yeah,
the Vendetta album is cool. Yep.
Celtic Frost creator and Voivod Cockroaches, which at the time was on the
Too Scared to Scream.
Yeah, Too Scared to Scream picture disc. After the attack was on a different pressing of Pleasure to Kill. I don't know, man. This is great, and this and Metal Blade, Best of Metal Blade Volume 1 are very instrumental in me getting into and really wanting to find out about other bands. I mean, the power of the compilation is sadly a lost art in this modern day. I mean, we used to make comps for our friends, tape comps of all these bands to check out, and it was fun to go and buy a compilation CD or tape and find out about new bands. But the way the internet has come, the joy of buying stuff like that kind of seems like a waste of money these days. But back then, it was our internet. I mean, that was our internet, was buying compilations or looking at the inside of pictures of bands and seeing what band t-shirts they were wearing. If it was of Ventor from Creator wearing a Soothsayer t-shirt, that I found out about that band.
Mm-hmm.
I had to buy a tape by fucking Soothsayer, and then I had to get all these other things, and that was our internet. And for some reason, it made the payoff of getting these albums seem so much more genuine. I mean, I don't want to say back in my day, but there's an element of truth to that. It's just you couldn't hear everything. You had to actually put up or shut up with your money.
Yeah,
and
or have friends who would buy it, and then you could listen to their copy.
Yep. This home taping is killing music. Anyway.
Yep. I've got a few things just to throw out there. Again, we had limited ourselves to sort of picking like one title per band. If you take that restriction away, some other things would definitely have made my top 10 list. Death or Glory would definitely have been on the list if I'm allowed to pick a second run in Wild. It's right up there with Black Hand In. Great one. Walls of Jericho would have been on the list, no doubt. This is one of my favorite albums.
Great.
I go back and play this all the time. It never gets old. Every song on it is just amazing. Keepers 2 would have been on the list as well. This is a great album. There's one or two songs on here that don't quite click with me as well as everything else, but I mean, it's still top-notch 5-star material. But
yep.
I'll always pick Volume 1 and Walls of Jericho ahead of this. So. Yeah. It's one of my favorite albums, and it's my third favorite Halloween album. So that tells you where I rank Halloween and things.
Yep.
If I had to pick one honorable mention, I would mention the band Conception, which I talked about briefly earlier. This was Roy Kahn's first band out of Norway. They had a very different sound. They were doing sort of progressive power metal before that became a popular thing to do. They didn't get a huge amount of attention at the time, but they did. Their first album is a little rough around the edges. They were kind of getting the quirks worked out. But by the time they did this one, the first half of this album is just beautiful. Really, really solid Euro power metal, but with, again, leaning in the more progressive direction with some different instrumentation here and there. Their first 3 albums are all really solid. So they're not going to make a top 10 list, but it's a band that a lot of folks may not have checked out before. And
never even heard
if you like that style, it's worth checking out.
Cool.
But yeah, so those were just some honorable mention things I wanted to throw out there.
I will say that after, preparing for this, going through the book and looking at the list of the entire release, all the releases that Noise put out, you kind of see that the early bands that they signed were obviously their most influential, and once those bands moved on, the 90s weren't kind of Noise. I mean, the music was shifting out of the thrash power metal sphere into death metal.
Yeah.
Things are getting more aggressive, and Walter Bach struggled. I don't know if he was, as much of a force in the label anymore. I know there was other people helping him, and there was a European or a English side and a US side, and it just seemed like they were just throwing a dart at the dartboard, whichever band it landed on. Oh, let's try this band in America. And a little bit took, and there was nothing there was no drawing power to the label anymore. I mean, it happened. It's bound to happen, I suppose. But
Yeah.
they had
Yeah,
maybe 10 or 15 bands that were a huge draw for them in the early days, and still much loved by all metal fans. And definite building blocks on the way to the music evolving to what it is today. But the label kind of took a shit after that.
The book Damn the Machine documents that pretty well, where Walter's kind of floundering a little bit, trying these different weird LA California scene acts, and just never finding one that could click. Basically, Noise had a really strong, he had a good lane, and then he got out of his lane, and it never could get it back on the road very well.
Well, he got out of his lane because I think the lane kind of dissolved as his music got more aggressive.
Maybe, yeah, maybe he had aggressive bands, on his label, but they I don't think they were ever his favorite bands necessarily. That's what I infer from reading the book. But
I love that album. It wasn't a huge. I mean, I spun a lot of these. These albums are part of my DNA, and Watchtower was a band that I needed to be in the mood for because they're so busy.
Yeah, that was going to be that segue is really nice into what I wanted to ask both of you is, what about some of the things that haven't made the list? Nobody has mentioned the band Rage. Nobody showed a Rage album tonight.
I want to say Jürgen just did like a Rage collection thing, and I realized that I have not bought an album by them since Secrets in a Weird World. And so he suggested Trapped and another one, Missing Link, and I started spinning those on Spotify the other day, and I'm like, holy shit, these are really good. I should probably continue on listening to Rage. So, yeah, I mean, to me, they were a good band. Peewee's vocals were always a little strange to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Looking back now, I'm probably going to pick up more of their collection thanks to Jürgen, but
Rage never really grabbed me all that hard. Although the first one I was exposed to was Execution Guaranteed, which to this day hasn't really clicked that much. I mean, I don't know. It's funny because I say that, and then like when I actually put it on, I go, oh, shit, I remember this record a lot better than I thought I did. Yeah. I guess I played it more than once. But like I liked The Perfect Man more than that one. That was the name of the one with the alien on it, right? And then the last one I got was the first one, which I also really liked. So I feel like I'm sort of, creeping up with Rage, but I've never been like, like Living Death, I'll sit here and go, but Rage I've never been as enthusiastic about. I don't have anything bad to say about him either,
Yeah, kind of the same here. I had, I had the first two on CD. I got Raising, Fear and Execution Guaranteed, maybe at the same time or very close together, and not bad, but never. Just didn't click enough that I really followed up the band. I know Missing Link has always sort of been a fan favorite. It always gets really good comments, but it's not a band I've explored a lot more. Based on what I've heard, it just never makes it to the top of the let's go back and listen to that band list. Another one nobody mentioned, Skyclad. 90s.
Actually, I was gonna pull Wayward Sons of Mother Earth. I love that record. It's great. It's a great album. Okay,
cool. Yeah, it was a favorite of like mine and some of my buddies when that came out. It was one I found it in a CD store. He and I were at a vertebrate paleontology conference in Pittsburgh in '96, and I had heard about the band, but again couldn't ever track their stuff down. And we ducked out of the conference early one afternoon to go record shopping, and I bought it. He looked at it, he's just like, "What the hell is that?" I'm just like, "Trust me, I think you're going to like this." And damn, I could barely listen to the thing all weekend because he just kept playing it on his little CD Walkman thing. Like, dude, quit bogarting my Skyclad CD. I've been looking at that fucking thing first. Like, this is so cool. And he really got into the folky kind of side of it. He really liked that a lot.
It was very much that should have been the third Sabbath album. It should have been.
Yes.
And it's basically Sabbath with violin. It's great. It's great. Great album.
Yeah, Skyclad. As much as I did like that album, it's not something I go back and revisit very often at all, which is why I didn't put one on the list. But some of their albums were very fun at the time. They were a band to me that needed to slow down the pace a little bit. They cranked out so many damn albums so fast in the early and mid 90s. you couldn't, even if you could find them, you couldn't have kept up with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they did 7 albums in 6 years.
Those albums were expensive too. They're all
And yes, they were hard to find in the U.S. They were not cheap to get as imports. It just you kind of got a little overwhelmed. It's just like, well, I was lucky, I think I got 3 of them over the time, but you couldn't keep up with the band, and and eventually some of them did start to sound a little samey. He's like, okay, it's going to be another bad pun in the title of the song, and they'll have a fiddle, and okay, but yeah.
What about Midas Touch?
Sorry, which one?
Midas Touch, Presage of Disaster.
Don't know that one.
Swedish. It's thrashy, kind of. Starting to get a little rough around the edges, like it might want to be proto death a little bit, but it's okay. It's not great. I enjoyed it.
Let me tell you something about Midas Touch here. One of these days, Alan, you're going to come across it, and you're going to be like, "What the fuck is wrong with this record?" Because I'm sitting here in the shop, and it's only $7.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Metallica records are 70. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And why is this record cheap? And the answer is nothing. Go ahead and just grab. When that day comes, just grab the record, because it's not Pleasure to Kill, but it's a really good record. That's going to be worth every penny of the $7 you spend on it.
They're Swedish and really heavy. It's really good heavy thrash.
I'm looking for it now. I have a feeling I've seen it before. Okay, I've seen this before.
You probably passed on a copy or two. I mean, it's not like it's super common, but it turns up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've seen it. I never knew anything about it.
Another one I like that everybody laughs about is Mordred, Fool's Game. It's got Every Day's a Holiday and Super Freak on it, which if you took those 2 albums off, it's a pretty good thrash record. Really clean sounding, but the thrash on it is pretty good. I always enjoyed that album. Other than
I never quite got into Mordred, but that's cool. Nobody's mentioned the band Sinner, which was another one of those kind of.
I almost mentioned a minute ago, man. Same with Rage, except I think I like Sinner more than Rage.
I don't know that pretty.
I agree.
To be honest.
You what?
I don't think I've ever heard Sinner.
Yeah, they're another one of those bands that you hear the name every now and then you go look on Metal Archives and you realize they've got 22 studio albums, going back 34 years. And it's just like when the hell did this happen?
Yeah,
but
I've seen this. Not this one. This one. People have shown this record recently. Warrant. That's one I've never seen, and I'd like to check that out for sure. I just haven't got around to listening to it online. I kind of want to just own it,
Yeah, just fucking cough up and do it then. They're worth it.
I remember the music video for Cherry Pie.
Yeah, Cherry Pie was fucking brutal.
But yeah, it's another. I've heard about that album for ages and never came across it. So yeah, I've never gotten to check it out. Well, and I know that sounds dumb because I can look it up on YouTube right now. But again, there's still that little glitch in the back of my mind where, I've got to wait until I find a copy of it. It takes me always a second to realize that shit, I could be listening to it 5 seconds from now. Different generation, didn't grow up with the internet.
Right.
But yeah, the Sinner stuff, I have not heard a lot of their early ones that they did on Noise. I'm a lot more familiar with the stuff they did later after they got off Noise, and it's very solid. It's got, again, that kind of good blue collar, German heavy metal feel to it. It's more traditional metal than power. It doesn't have the fancy, power metal sound as much as a lot of German bands, but it's pretty good. Matt Sinner definitely got more and more of a Thin Lizzy vibe in some of the albums as they went over time, which is okay by me. He does it. He pays homage to them nicely with some of his songs, but you can listen to some of those later Sinner stuff, and it's just like that's fucking dead on Thin Lizzy. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was a cover song. And he's covered some Thin Lizzy songs on some of those albums too. He did a great cover of "Sun Goes Down" in particular.
Sweet.
Trying to think if there's anyone else we haven't mentioned that should have at least gotten shouted out, but I don't know, anything in the chat that people are wondering why the hell we didn't talk about. Chat, help us out.
There's been a few people saying this and that.
Okay.
Mania is one of them, and
I saw that Pain Insanity. I just don't like that record very much.
I've seen
it
didn't blow me away, but
don't know it.
Well, yeah, I guess that's it. I think we hit it. It was fun.
Definitely.
Thanks everybody for coming around and watching us ramble on about old records. And this is something me and Alan been talking about. It may not always be just the two of us. It might be other people involved and whatnot. And I don't know if we're going to do it weekly, but we're going to continue to have these little themed streams and to kind of break out of the normal bullshit session and just have some sort of a trajectory with the conversations. And Aaron, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Definitely.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's been cool talking to you. I think it's the first time you and I have really talked live.
I think it is, yeah.
I know
we're going to do more of it.
I've crashed the chat on some of your live streams, which has been fun. But yeah, it's cool to get to talk to you in person, man.
First time of many.
Okay, thanks everybody. Maybe see us next week. Maybe it'll be 2 weeks. We'll see. Alan's got a couple ideas for stuff, and we'll go from there. But check out Let's Talk Metal. Check out the Metal Theologian. Both of them are amazing channels. You should, if you're not subscribed already, definitely please do so. The boys would appreciate it. And have a good night. We'll see you later.
Y'all take care, man.